Let's talk draft winners now. Let's turn our attention to those teams that did well, those players that did well, and the guys that we think are going to have the biggest uptick, their stock going up now that the draft has come and gone. Major, who is that one player right now that you're like, you know what? That is a great spot for him.
All right, I'm going to try this out. Let's, have my Ramondre. I'm like, remember? Okay. I'm going to try this one. Rashee. Maybe. Okay.
I was expecting it. I was thrown. I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm trying to give you a little Michael Jackson action there. So yeah, Rashee.
I thought you could go with like Rashee Rice.
No, I don't mind the high pitch, but you got to like Shimon or something after it. You got to like hit it like a. You got to do something after.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go Rashee Rice. He was one of my favorite receivers coming into this draft just because the dude is a beast. The man is like a little bit of Steve Smith Sr., where he'll go and grab the ball and give some elbows and body slam and punch people. And then he has like the skill set of like a Debo to where he can like run after catch and become a running back when he gets the ball. But I thought he was going to have an issue during the combine with the 40 time, but he actually ran a 4.5. I was really happy for him when he did that. And I thought his stock was going to be solely based on his draft capital, and he fell in the hands of the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. So I think that's great. And I think he has the chance to be the wide receiver 1 there. I mean, you have Kadarius hasn't really put it all together yet, just to be nice about it. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he showed us who he is, and we thought he was. Sky Moore is interesting. Like, he's showed some marks here and there, but I don't think he has like I don't know, something's missing for me. Like, when it comes to being a wide receiver 1, to me, he seems like a slot receiver, and I think he's going to be a really good one. But Rice, on the other hand, he has the size, he has the speed, he has the running ability. He's not Tyreek at all, but I think the closest thing to it in this offense, besides Tony, I mean, just because the physicality of him, and he has a nice size. He goes and grabs the ball, like he goes to the ball and makes a play every single time. So he's going to make Mahomes' job even easier when he's doing like the stupid behind back pass or under the legs or whatever other stupid concoction he comes up with. Yeah, stop doing that, Mahomes. Like, I'm tired of like we got it. You did a no-look pass one time. We get it. You can do cool stuff. Let's play football. But Rice is going to make him an even better quarterback. I'm really happy for this spot. And if we're going to talk rookies of the year and receivers, I'm going to give it to Rice. He has the best quarterback. He's in a passing offense, and he has an opportunity to be that wide receiver 1 just on the fact that the other receivers are still kind of unproven at this point in their careers.
You know what? I was following you. I was digging it, and then you had to put some disrespect there. For one, she was like maybe at best the 3rd option. Remember, Travis Kelce's still the number 1 pass catcher. Then Jerry is the number 2 pass catcher, and then Kadarius Toney's the number 3 pass catcher there for 3 games a year. DeAndre Swift, we talk about Rashad Penny, we talk about. Kadarius Toney's another one of those players that I'm not going to get fooled again. I'm not getting fooled again by Kadarius Toney. We've heard this hype. We heard about this. You know what? Your hamstrings are your hamstrings. Unless he's taking some Pilates or some yoga or something to tighten that up, I ain't falling for it. Now, Tara, when you look at
Will
this,
Fuller special.
Yeah, exactly.
Get you good for
Fuller.
Like,
we haven't seen Will Fuller since. We haven't seen him since that. So let's not do that.
But that broken finger that Will Fuller had, that's kept him out for about 1.5 years now. But Tara, when you look at this, Major listed off Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Justin Watson, Richie James, Justin Ross, he's still there. I mean, we're hearing good things from Justin Ross and Patrick Mahomes. When you look at these guys here, opportunity is your best path to success here in the National Football League. And when you look at this depth chart here for the Kansas City Chiefs, I see where Major's going because there is opportunity in this wide receivers room. I don't know if it's going to be the number 1 rookie wide receiver type good, but where he landed, there's about, I don't know, probably 20 other teams that have been a lot worse than where he could have landed. And when I look at Rice's game, he's a bully. He is a bully when the ball is in his hands. When he catches that ball, he turns into a running back in that secondary. He's looking to run guys over. He's kind of like the Darnell Washington of wide receivers when I compare him to that kind of style. When you look at this, Tera, is there a way that Rashee Rice could be the #1 wide receiver on this Chiefs team?
Yeah, for sure. See, he's a prospect where, and this will be terrifying for people, he has huge upside, massive upside play. But there's also a possibility that he could be an absolute bust. You know, he lacks a little bit of athleticism, and that can become a problem, you know, for a wide receiver when you get to the NFL level. So I can see where people are very skeptical of him and don't like him, and they have some problems because there's a massive bust potential with him. But the thing is if this was, because we're coming off of the Sky Moore year, I do think that this is a situation where I'm going to be having some shares of Rashee Rice, because you're not going to have to, unless you've got a true believer in like your dynasty league. You know, you're looking at a max of a, you know, late second, maybe an early third pick. If, you know, you got a bunch of haters in your league, that's very reasonable to take, you know, a stab on a guy who realistically, if it pans out, could become a wide receiver 1 for Patrick Mahomes. So it's within the realm of possibility. And redraft, you know, the ADP will be super low too. So yeah, I think he's worth the investment. Take a shot. We'll know right off the bat whether or not it's a possibility or not. You'll be able to see it on the field if he has that capabilities, if the upside is there.
I think after camp, you're going to see his stock rise. You're going to see him like early second, maybe late first round pick in your dynasty drafts for sure.
I would say it's a possibility. The problem is we're coming off of that Sky Moore, you know, year, and the fatigue off of that with people who were like legitimately taking with him with the 4th or 5th overall pick in the rookie drafts. Right. Coming off of that, there's some fatigue for what a wide receiver drafted into Kansas City offense, what the actual upside is, knowing that.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but can you please explain the not being athletic part? Like the dude is like run after catch guy.
This not super speedy, not super dynamic. He's just kind of like a, I don't know, maybe like a N'Keal Harry, N'Keal Harry potential.
Don't do that to him.
No. I'm saying that's within the realm of outcome of what it could be.
That's scary. Yeah, I get it. He's not as fast. Yeah. He doesn't have that fast twitch, but I think like I said, Steve Smith to me is like one of the comps that I like for him. What he lacks in athletic ability, he gains in like toughness and like just bulliness. Is that a bullyingness? I don't know if that's the word, but
let's lean into it more. Like lean into that and realize what type of receiver you are.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to like about Rashee Rice there. And I did hear a little bit of what Tera was saying there. When you look at his scouting report, you're like, okay, you know what? He's that guy that could be that top 5 in this class. And he can also be that guy who kind of drops into outside of the top 10 just based on the different things that he brings to the table. You look at it, talent there. SMU kind of graduated there. Didn't really face top end quality. Some of these other other wide receivers were facing throughout the season. That's one of those other knocks on him. Going against top end corners, I might be able to stick around with him a little bit there. But looking at these weaknesses, he's got that SMU offense didn't ask him to run a lot of complicated patterns. It's a very basic route tree. That's one of those things he's going to have to learn. And then it's just those small details. So those were probably the biggest knocks when it came to Rice. And it's not really on Rice. He wasn't asked about it in college. It wasn't part of that SMU type offense. These are things that he's going to have to learn at the next level. But one player right now that's not going to have to learn a whole heck of a lot at the next level, a player that was the consensus #1 overall fantasy player, and yet somehow, Tera, he ends up in an even better situation than we could have imagined. Talk to us about the biggest winner in your eyes.
It's Bijan for me. From a real football perspective, it was a strange pick for the Falcons. It was
I loved it.
like you should have. Is that what's really realistically? They were very close to being a playoff team, but they had a lot of defensive problems. You should have opted for a defensive player there and just stacked. When your run game was so incredibly effective. And you obviously want a complimentary back there. If, not that Bijan's complimentary, but you could have gotten a complimentary back to split with Tyler Algier later. You didn't have to make that investment if you were looking for something to really push your team over the edge. I don't know if reinvesting in your running back room was really the right move. But I don't really care about that because we are talking fantasy football. And from a fantasy football perspective, people need to get severely excited for this. I don't think that it deserves all the air horns in the world because it's weird. I see a lot of sentiment around of people thinking that this is not, I don't know if it's that they're heavily invested in Tyler Algier and they're just disappointed, or if they're just not understanding how this Falcons offense is focused. But this is an incredible, you could not have, you could have, a clear 3-down back in a top offense role, that would have been fantastic. But we're talking about a team that in 2022 was first in rush attempts, aggressively first in rush attempts. And when you put that in perspective of the fact that they were not rushing and running aggressively because they were up, they were down. And it didn't matter. They were committed. Okay. They were third in rushing yards. So this was not they were just pure volume rushing. They were highly effective with it. They were 10th in rushing touchdowns. Even though they were a bad offense, they were still getting a decent amount of rushing touchdowns, 10th in the league, 4th in yards per attempt. That's highly impressive. This is a good offense. This is a good offensive line. You are throwing the most talented running back into a situation that is literally one of the best running back situations in the league to a coach who is known factually committed to the run. Arthur Smith is not going to deviate from this. We know exactly what he wants to do. They were a run heavy team. And this offense is going to stay run heavy. Now, I think, Matt, you might have talked, one of you kind of, downed the potential pass attempts for the Falcons and that it was going to be ugly moving forward. I don't think it's going to be super ugly. Again, this is going to look very similar to, what he did in Tennessee. It's not going to be high pass volume. But when you look at last year, towards the end of the season, when Desmond Ridder was finally allowed to be the starting quarterback, we got a decent sample size there, weeks 15 through 18. The pass attempts were okay. They were 26, 33, 26, 30. That's decent. There's not going to be a high volume offense, but it's going to be enough for them to move the ball well enough. There's going to be a lot of goal line opportunities for them. They're going to be aggressive on the ground. And even over that time period where they did increase pass volume over what they previously had with Marcus Mariota, Tyler Algier over that time period, weeks 5 through 18, when he was actually given that RB1 role, he was 5th, RB5 in total fantasy points, RB9 in average fantasy points per game, averaging 17.1 points per game in PPR. That is without pass catching upside that Bijan has. So when we're looking at this as a whole, for you not to be in on Bijan in this landing spot means that you just don't think he's as good as Tyler Algier. And I know that nobody believes that. So come on, man. This is a fantastic opportunity. He has legitimate RB1 upside, and they rush enough where, yes, this is not going to, it was over 500 rush attempts. It's not going to be all Bijan. So there's still going to be some Algier, and it's going to be enough to justify him as a good handcuff. You'll want to draft him as a good high upside handcuff, a guy that will still get a decent amount of carries, that can maybe have some, low end possible flex appeal options. Again, not pass catching upside. So that really limits him in terms of his upside. But, he'll still be involved. But I don't think his involvement is really going to have a negative effect on Bijan because there's just so much pass or run volume in that offense. It's fantastic. So yes, there's going to be, they're not going to completely, toss Algier away, but you got to remember, man, draft capital is king. And especially when we're looking at these running backs, they're not going to have Bijan come in there and say, well, Algier was good last year. Let's make sure this is a 50-50 split. That's not going to happen. It's not going to be a 50-50 split. This is a fantastic opportunity for him, and he's building on that production that they had last year with receiving upside. He is going to be involved in that volume that Cordell Patterson had. So when we're combining the aggressive running on the ground with the pass catching upside, it is just, you know, the perfect combination for Bijan. He has legitimate RB1 upside. He's a round 1 pick for me for sure in redraft. It's a no-brainer. I love Bijan this year. Top 5 back.
There's really not a whole heck of a lot to add to that, is there? I mean, we talked about it already. I already told you how I feel about that. You look at that, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Cordell Patterson, Caleb Huntley. I mean, there's not a whole lot of threatened for touches there on that pecking order. Now, for me, my biggest winner, Tara, you're going to enjoy this one because I'm going to the Green Bay Packers here. And I did the whole tour here of the podcast before the draft, and I preached to my man, Jayden Reed, there before the whole draft process started. Back in the Senior Bowl, the dude was torching guys down in Mobile, Alabama. And that was something that Michigan State didn't really ask him to do. Now, if Jim Nagy, who's been on the show, says that Reed is going to outperform many of the wide receivers projected to go earlier than him as a pro, you have to listen. Reed, he may not be that day one contributor, but you look at everything that he has, that yak ability, those vertical skills, that makes him one of the top fantasy receivers in this class. And I think the NFL, at least the Packers, view him that way because of how highly they drafted him, how highly they feel about him, because they invested day 2, their second-round draft capital into him. So that's something that we have to strongly consider. We've already seen an improvement in his fantasy stock going from an ADP of about 27. That's where it is currently. Before pre-draft is about 38. And it helps when you're the 6th receiver. Like I said, he comes off the board earlier. Christian Watson on the outside with the Packers offense. And as much as I want Romeo Dobbs there to actually be a guy, I don't think he's there yet. Now, Green Bay, they've got a pretty decent offense that they can send out there, led by Jordan Love, throwing Watson, throwing Reed, a couple of these rookie tight ends there, and Musgrave there, and Kraft. Watch these kids grow together. I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing for this Packers team. Now, getting back to Reed, he averaged greater than a 50% catch rate there, contested catch rate in 3 straight seasons there at Michigan State, despite his size. His true fresh breakout season came as a freshman, 56 catches, 797 yards, 8 touchdowns. And that all that went under the radar there throughout this whole draft process. 79.2% success rate against zone, 77.8% success rate against man, and and he was in the 87th percentile when it comes to those against press coverage. He's a guy that's going to endear himself to Jordan Love, especially working out of the slot, especially on third down, especially in those tight areas. And that's where he's going to find himself making big-time plays. We know that Green Bay doesn't have an explosive offense. A.J. Dillon's going to do his thing. Aaron Jones, and he's going to do his thing. But when it comes to 3rd and short, I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Love decides to throw the ball. And Jayden Reed's got that ability to get open, make those contested catches. And he's a pretty decent route runner despite not being acclaimed as one of these top route runners in this year's class. So you put that together, tough route runner, guys going to make those contested catches, vertical threat. I mean, this Packers offense, it could be a lot better than we're giving it credit for right now, as long as Jordan Love can be that catalyst to get it going. You know, some of these other winners, in my opinion, Anthony Richardson, the ham cannon himself going to Indianapolis, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman. I mean, Josh Downs, throw him as a winner here too. Jonathan Taylor, lots of good options there in Indianapolis for this Indianapolis Colts and Anthony Richardson. I love what all these teams did for these young quarterbacks. Bryce Young in Carolina, CJ Stroud there in Houston. Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson already putting weapons in place for these guys. Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, nothing added to these backfields. You could add in guys like Rachaad White into this too, because, I mean, no one in there behind. I mean, I think Rachaad White has the biggest addition there. That was Sean Tucker's an undrafted free agent. DeAndre Swift, another winner, if you want to call it that, getting out of Detroit there when they went and got Jahmyr Gibbs, when they had David Montgomery going to Philadelphia. Another crowded backfield, but a backfield that major feels that he can emerge as a top running back in that team. Lamar Jackson, finally, this team's getting him some weapons, whether it's Odell Beckham Jr. before that, and then they end up getting themselves Zay Flowers. So big-time win for Lamar Jackson there in Baltimore. Geno Smith, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zach Charbonnet, Kenny McIntosh, all these pieces added in the draft maybe don't work good for the other pieces, but they work good for Geno Smith. Mentioned Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, big winners there because of Anthony Richardson. And then Sam Laporta. I mean, All Iowa does is crank out tight ends. You go back, you look at the history of Iowa there, all the way to George Kittle, Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, and now he gets an opportunity to catch passes there in Detroit where there's no other tight ends to worry about. I mean, that's a win there. And tight end premiums, Sam Laporta could be that top tight end when it's all said and done, just because there's nothing else there as far as tight ends are concerned. That all being said, this has been the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. You've heard about winners. You've heard about losers. Make sure you check out both these shows. And until next week, take care.